Good evening. I'm Tiziana Tedesco, and on behalf of the Italian Chamber of Commerce of Ontario, I would like to welcome you to the special edition of our Tutti a Tavola cooking experiences. Pickle has launched these cooking classes in April following the COVID-19 lockdown to stay in touch with its network of companies, businesses, industry experts, media, bloggers, and foodies. We're happy to have received such positive feedback and experienced an increasing number of followers throughout these past weeks. Thank you also for the many messages of support yesterday as we participated in the Blackout Tuesday. This evening, we're presenting a special edition of the class to showcase one of the excellencies in the Italian cheese production, Pecorino Toscano, and we're doing so in collaboration with the consortium of the producers of Pecorino Toscano. This association comprises 900 sheep breeders, 20 dairies, two cheese maturing experts, and a packaging facility, all of whom share the love for Tuscany, its unique farmland and countryside, and the desire to achieve excellence in their production. The consortium of Pecorino Toscano is responsible for protecting and overseeing the production and marketing of the cheese in Italy and internationally, and the use of the DOP or PDO, Protected Designation of Origin seal. This association promotes any project or initiative that can safeguard the uniqueness and peculiar characteristics of this cheese, including our Tutti a Tavola class this evening. Our chef, Roberto Fracchioni, professor and food consultant, will go further in details to give you some background on this excellent product and will prepare for us a delicious Tuscan salad, which will enhance the qualities and the uniqueness of Pecorino Toscano. The video we are about to show you demonstrates how Pecorino Toscano is rooted in the history of the region, in a profound relationship within the environment, the sheep, and the shepherds. In Tuscany, sheep breeding, which is one of the most ancient forms of animal husbandry, has centuries-old roots, the fruits of which are a cheese-making tradition handed down through generations, and a type of cheese that is considered one of the best Italian specialty foods. Please continue to follow us next week when we will start a new 4-week series of cooking classes that will take us through the month of June with summer-delicious recipes to prepare on the grill and in your kitchen with the help of Chef Roberto. Enjoy the video we're about to show, after which we will be going tutti a tavola to the table. Buon appetito with Pecorino Toscano.
All right. Wow, that's pretty awesome. After watching that video, anything, it's all right there. So, welcome everyone. My name is Roberto Fracchioni. We're here in my kitchen today to do a really quick and easy Tuscan dish. So, as Tiziana mentioned in the opening, the Pecorino Toscano is a very classic Tuscan cheese. We're going to do a dish that is, again, very, very Tuscan, but I'm going how to kind of make it a little bit Canadian. How do I say this properly? It's a great dish for what we're dealing with right now, where we don't want to go out to the grocery store every single day. This is where you just need to rummage through your fridge, find whatever is in there, and put it into a wonderful salad. This is one of my go-to dishes. Honestly, I make this all the time when I don't have a lot of time for dinner, and I just need to quickly throw some stuff. So there's one step that I have to get started right away, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about Pecorino Toscano. So the first step is that we're going to take some red onions. So this is a Panzanella salad, which is a bread and vegetables. One of the ingredients that I like to use is red onion, but I don't like raw red onion. It's one thing that has always bothered me my entire 25 years of being in a restaurant is red onion into a dish. I don't like the way it lingers on your palate. I don't like the bite of it when you're eating a salad with it. So what we're going to do is do a very quick pickle of the red onion. So we take our red onion and we just cut it in half. And then once we have it cut in half, you can see that the root here is sort of holding all the leaves together. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out the root so that the leaves of the onion, I'm doing this on the side, don't do it this way. I'm just doing this so you guys can see. Put it flat on your cutting board so you don't lose a finger. Now, once the root is removed, these leaves of onion, oh, this is a tight one. All these leaves of onion will kind of fall apart. So you peel off. I like to use the outside 3 or 4 leaves. I'm going to cut, make it a little easier. So I like to use the outside 3 or 4 layers of the onions because they're usually nice and thin. So that's the outside 4 layers of onions. I'm going to stack them up and I'm just going to cut them as thin as I can possibly cut them. So have a sharp knife, know how to use it, take your time, try not to do it as fast as I am. Your bud. Sorry. Take your time. You just want to make sure that they are super finely sliced. If you want, you can use a mandolin. It doesn't really matter how you get them thin, as long as you get them thin. Peel the onions into layers is that you can get a much thinner slice with it this way. If you try and do it as a whole onion, it just sort of ends up with the inside layers of the onion being a little bit thicker. So super thin, little julienne of the red onion. Once we have that, we're just going to put it into a little container. You can use a mixing bowl. You can use whatever you want. And we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of red wine vinegar into here. So just a little bit of red wine vinegar. And a little bit, I mean, you fill it up about halfway. You want the onions about halfway submerged. It all depends on the size of your container. It all depends on how many onions you put in. I went a little heavy, but that's okay. Once they're completely submerged, we're just going to take a little sprinkle, and I mean a little sprinkle of salt and pepper. Quick little turn, salt and pepper. And I'm going to put a little bit of sugar in here. Now, I mean a little bit of sugar. You don't want this to be sweet. You just want to take out a bit of the bite of the raw onion. So once that's all in there, all we have to do is set it aside. Now, the onions are going to cook, basically cook in vinegar. So once we give it a little toss, the salt, don't worry about mixing it completely. The salt and pepper will basically dissolve into the vinegar, and that will help season and, like I said, take out the bite of the red onion. Once that's done, again, set it aside. So that's the first step. Now we're going to talk a bit about Pecorino Toscano. There's a lot of misconception about what Pecorino Toscano really is. So Pecorino Toscano, it is a sheep's milk cheese. A lot of people are sort of tentative. They're kind of nervous or afraid about eating sheep's milk cheese because they think it's going to be a very flavor. They think often of goat's cheese, and they think that they're in the same sort of realm of cheese. They're not. This Pecorino Toscano, it's made with pasteurized sheep's milk. The fresh one, which is what I have here, you can tell when you cut it open, it is very, you can see it's very white, very lightly pale yellow in color, but primarily white. This is only aged for 20 days. You saw in the video that they have the little forms of cheese floating through some water. That's the brining process. That's where the salt is put into the forms of cheese. That's when the aging starts. That is the day that the aging. So after 20 days, the cheese is inspected, and if it meets all the criteria, then it gets the little branded logo on it. After that, it's packaged and it's shipped to Canada. We get it within a few weeks. And so this is a very, very fresh cheese. It's not super strong. It's not like a goat's cheese at all. You can get Pecorino Toscanos that are aged. That's the older style of Pecorino Toscano. It has a little bit more flavor. It's a little more earthy. It's a little more grassy. Like it tastes kind of like grass, but it has a much drier consistency. This cheese here, you can see it's very, very, like if I just take the tip of my knife, like it crumbles. It's very, very light, very fresh. It's a wonderful cheese. So try Pecorino Toscano. If you're not familiar with it, try it once, and I guarantee you it will become a staple in your fridge. I use it all the time, not just for this Panzanella salad. I use it with pastas. I use it in fillings and pastas all the time. When I want a cheese that has a texture kind of like a grana padano, a little softer, but has a similar sort of texture, but a little more flavor. It does have a lot more flavor than a regular, Friulano or Asiago or anything like that. So wonderful cheese. Give it a try. When you buy it, just make sure it has the logo on the exterior, on the label, and look for the branding on the side. When you look at the branding, this number down here, that's the number of the producer, the actual producer that produced this form of cheese. It's a bit of traceability that Pecorino Toscano, so that if there ever is a problem with the form of cheese, they can trace it right back to the producer to see if there's any bigger problems happening at the producer level. So now our onions are cooking, and we're going to do a little bit of cutting. Again, not a very complicated dish. First thing we're going to start with is a little piece of bread. So I just got these little ciabatta. So I'm going to use this. Just a nice crusty Italian bread is what we want to start with. And all we want to do is cut it into squares. Now, if you really want to do it authentic, you don't have to cut it. You can take your loaf of bread and just rip it into little pieces. Whatever you feel like. This is kind of fun if you have, a child in your house who's going bored, a little stir crazy. Just say, hey, come here, start tearing bread. It's more fun than Play-Doh. But we're going to cut it. So we cut our pieces about a half an inch, and then we just dice it. I'm using just a regular chef's knife. You can use a bread knife if you want. Doesn't really matter. Once we dice it, it doesn't have to be perfect. Again, this is a very rustic dish. So if you want to do small dices and then a big dice, it really doesn't matter. The size of the dice is completely up to you as well. So this is about a half inch with the width of my finger. If you want them smaller, you can. If you want them bigger, you can do that as well. It doesn't really matter. Just think about eating it. I tend to go a little bit on the smaller side when I do my dice, just because I don't want to wrestle with it to get it into my mouth. So once these are cut, we put them into a mixing bowl, And we just give it a little drizzle of olive oil. So using a Tuscan oil because it's a Tuscan dish. A little drizzle of olive oil, not too crazy. A little turn of salt and pepper again. Again, we're salting and peppering throughout the entire process here, so crazy with it, or else when you put the dish together, it's going to be overly salty. So we just give this a quick little toss. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of the Pecorino Toscano. So I just use microplane rasp, and we grate some cheese right into the bowl. Once the cheese is in there, we give it a quick little toss so that all the breadcrumbs are coated. You want to see little bits of cheese stuck to all four sides of the breadcrumbs. Once that's done, onto a baking tray with a piece of parchment paper. If you're doing a lot, then a full-size baking tray. I'm just doing a bit, so I'm going to use a small pie plate. And we put this into the oven. So to roast these, this is where you have to make a bit of a decision. If you want the bread hard and crispy, then you do it at about 350 degrees for about 12 minutes. But if you want, the way I like it, I like to keep them a little bit soft so that it absorbs more liquid. So to keep them soft, I turn the oven up to 400 degrees, and it takes about 9 minutes, 7 to 9 minutes. All you want is the bread to get a little bit hard. You don't want it crispy. They're not croutons that you're putting on top of a Caesar salad. You want them to be a little bit soft so that they'll absorb the moisture from all the vegetables. Now, I said earlier that this is a great day. Sorry, are there any questions? I should ask that before I get too far into it.
Thank you, Chef. Yes, we have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So the first one was, could you just show us the red wine vinegar again, please? We had a question about that.
So that's the red wine vinegar. I use a lot of red wine vinegar. It's probably my favorite vinegar that I use. So I try different brands all the time. I'm not exactly sure where I got this one, Leonardi, but I just look for a good made in Italy red wine vinegar. When the quarantine's over, I'm going to get back to, my mom's house where we have 3 big jugs of red wine vinegar. But in the meantime, I'm using some store-bought stuff.
There's also a question in regards to the bread. Can you substitute the bread with any other types of bread, like multigrain?
Yeah, you can use multigrain bread. You could use anything. You just have to keep in mind when you start changing from a very, sort of basic white Italian bread, the flavor profile of the salad is going to change. So primarily this is a bread salad. The bread plays a big part of it, not only in the volume, but in the flavor. So if you use a whole grain bread, then that whole grain flavor is going to be much more in the salad. So maybe cut back, use a little less bread and a little more vegetables so that the flavor in the end is balanced.
Thank you. And then we also have a question in regards to the cheese. Why is Pecorino cheese so salty?
Salty? Oh, I don't think it's that salty at all. Check the kind of pecorino that you're getting. Pecorino Toscano is not a very salty cheese at all. You might be buying a different brand, especially ones that are made outside of Italy. They tend to be a bit more salty. If you find Pecorino Toscano a little bit salty for you, then this is a perfect dish because you just cut back on all the pepper that we're putting in with the vegetables and the different ingredients, and you'll find that the saltiness of the cheese won't be as pronounced because it's an ingredient in an entire salad. My suggestion.
Thank you, Chef. Okay, so far so good for the questions.
Okay, so we're going to cut our tomatoes next. So if you don't have one of these, pick up one of these. One of the greatest kitchen tools. They're like $3-4, and they're called a tomato shark. And they just have little pointy teeth on it so that you can go through and pull out the core of the tomatoes. So really I use them with strawberries too. You just go into the tomato and you go around and you pull out the cores, the little stems. So when we're doing this dish, we want to make sure that we have ripe, soft tomatoes. Make sure that your knife is sharp. We want to just dice our tomatoes, but keep all of the juice that comes out of it. So quite often when people go to cut tomatoes, wrestle with it, like they're trying to get through the skin. When you do that, yeah, it gets a little dangerous. Try this. When you go to cut a tomato, if it's not going through because you're pushing and you have to saw, pull the knife towards you. This way. So start here with the heel of your knife and then just pull the knife towards you in with very soft skinned vegetables. This tends to work a little bit better if your knife isn't sharp, just because of the way that the burrs on the edge of your blade develop over time. So you see all the juice that's on the cutting board? I'm trying to scoop all of that up. That is flavor country. We don't want to waste a drop of that. So when I choose my tomatoes, again, look for nice soft ones. Look for ones that are nice and ripe. Quite often when I'm doing this salad, I will even go to the and dent and overripe sort of section of the grocery stores, so that I find a tomato that's really, really soft. Even if it has a little bit of a bruise on it, it's no big deal. I'd rather cut off the bruise and use the rest of the tomato than take a tomato that is completely green on the inside when you cut it. Okay, so quick dice of our tomatoes. Again, this is a rustic dish, so don't know your dices being perfect. Make them big, make them small, everything in between. Don't worry about it. Tomatoes are pretty much the main ingredient, the main flavoring ingredient in this salad. So you want a lot of them. When you're cutting tomatoes, you think you're making a tomato salad. And you are. You're making a tomato salad. It just happens to have bread and all kinds of other vegetables in it. So speaking of other vegetables, as I said earlier, this is a great coronavirus because it just takes a little bit of vegetables in order to make this salad. You don't need a ton of vegetables. So it's a great dish to go through your fridge, find out what you have that's getting tired, and throw it into this salad. So I'm using a nice mix of tomatoes here. I have a little bit of grape tomatoes, some heirloom tomatoes, different colors. I have greens, I have yellows, reds, black tomatoes, fine. Again, as long as they're ripe, they will work really well in this salad. So these ones we're not going to dice. We're just going to cut them into small pieces, some of them long, so you get, and then I'm going to take some other ones and just cut them into wagon wheels so you get circle. Again, the more texture, the more, the difference of shapes that you have in this salad, the more layers you have in it, the more homey it looks, which is kind of what we're going for, but it also is just a little brighter. It just looks kind of cool when there's all these different geometric shapes happening. It's like, modern art of salad. So once all our tomatoes are cut, this is the second step that you want to do. So after there's my stuff. After the onions are we get our bread toasting. Sorry, so I guess the third step you want to do. You want to get these cut so that some of the juices will start to come out of the tomatoes. When you're done, see all that? Hold it up high enough. You can see there's a whole lot of liquid in the bottom of the pan. That's what we want. That tomato juice is going to flavor all of the bread once we mix this all together. Okay, so our next vegetable that we're going to cut is a little cucumber. So I just grabbed the big because, I don't know, I like the way that they look. So we're just going to cut them into quarters and then cut them into nice small shapes, nice small pieces. And again, throw an angle in there. Don't worry about it looking kind of rustic. That's all right. Don't want everything to be perfect. with salads, when we cut and we talk about having nice even cuts, quite often we think about that because we're cooking the vegetables and we want them to cook evenly. With salads, we're not cooking any of these cucumbers. It doesn't really matter how they're cut. They're perfect, or some are kind of big, and some are kind of small. Doesn't really matter. It's a beautiful rustic salad. So I have to run over and check my croutons. So any questions, Astrid?
Yes, we have a few. Can you just repeat what kind of tomatoes you used and why should you not store tomatoes in the fridge?
Oh yeah, storing tomatoes in the fridge is very bad. Humidity that's very is detrimental to tomatoes, and they also absorb a lot of the flavors from the fridge. The tomatoes that I used, I mean, I just went and got some vine-ripened Ontario hothouse tomatoes. Lucky here in Toronto, in that our tomatoes are great pretty much all year round because they're not only grown in the fields, they're grown in greenhouses. So I just got some, hothouse Ontario tomatoes, and then I got some little grape. So I already cut them all up, but just little grape guys, different colors. They're heirloom varieties, so you have some yellows, some black. But it all depends what looks good. The Romas weren't as ripe, using Romas because they're kind of a meaty tomato. But in this salad, it actually works better if you have, sorry, I should explain meaty. When you cut into like a regular tomato, you see what the seeds are, all that liquid. In Roma tomatoes, there's a lot less of this, a lot less of the pulp. So they're nice for a lot of applications, but in this salad, it's actually all right to have all that pulp because that's where the liquid, and that's what's going to flavor our bread when we mix it all together.
So could you also add sun-dried tomatoes in it?
You have to be careful with sun-dried tomatoes. Sun-dried tomatoes, the flavor is really strong. Like it's really pronounced flavor. So this is not really a dish for sun-dried tomatoes. The whole idea of this dish is that it's light and it's bright. And if you add the sun-dried tomatoes, it becomes a very deep, rich sort of flavor, which will overpower the brightness of all the other vegetables. So I would definitely stay away from roasted or sun-dried dish. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. And we have a couple of questions in regards to the pecorino, actually. How is it different from goat's cheese? And also, if you can just tell us where you can buy Pecorino Toscano.
Okay, I mean, it's different in goat cheese for a lot of reasons. It's a lot more firm than like the fresh goat cheese that we're used to here in Ontario, especially. We're used to the really soft, creamy goat cheese that is strongly flavored. Pecorino Toscano, because it's aged and it's pressed and it's brined, it's a lot softer in flavor. The Pecorino Toscano, the thing that makes it unique is the grasses that the sheep graze on. So it's traditionally a Tuscan cheese. There are some areas in Umbria and where else? Lazio, I believe, that do have certification to breed sheep, but it's primarily done in Tuscany. And the grasses that grow in Tuscany that the sheep forage are unique to that area, very high in herbs. There's a lot of herbs in the grasses that the sheep eat. So the flavor becomes, like I said, it's more grassy. It's more herby than a goat's cheese, which is very strongly flavored. And it's also the texture. The texture is a lot more firm than the soft tubes of goat cheese that we come across. As far as where you can buy it, any good Italian store that has a good cheese selection will have it. Any cheese specialty stores in Toronto will have at least one Pecorino Toscano. The one that I'm using here, this is a fresh one. So this is only 20 days aging. You can get the ones that are 4 months, and they'll be a lot darker in the skin and a lot firmer on the inside. You can also find Pecorino Toscanos that are washed on the outside. They apply ashes or they'll apply tomato pulp. They'll apply different flavorings to the outside of the form of the cheese to give the cheese itself a little more flavor. But if you're new to Pecorino, start off with a young, fresh piece of Pecorino Toscano and that's sort of the jumping off point. When you get into the older ones or the ones that are treated with tomatoes or ashes, the flavor becomes much different, much richer, much heavier. So this works perfect with this salad because it's light and bright. The aged ones, much better for pastas, other dishes that have a little more heft to them.
Could you also add more aged pecorino to this salad?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Could you add some pecorino that is more aged to this salad?
You could. You absolutely could. At the end, we're going to add. We're not just using the pecorino on the John's of the crostini. We're adding some shaved right at the end. You could go ahead with the aged one, but again, you have to be careful because it is much stronger in flavor. The whole idea here, light and bright. This is sitting on the patio in the summer salad, so you want to be leery a bit of adding too much richness, too much depth.
So which wine would you pair with a salad like this?
Oh man, anything that you like to drink. It depends. There's a lot of variables going into this salad. So because we have all the vegetables going into it, a lot of it depends on the vegetables that you use. A nice light rosé would be great with this. A white, like a Sangiovese, especially because we're using some asparagus today. I would definitely go with a little Sangiovese. It's also a salad that works well with a sparkling wine. A Prosecco would be absolutely fantastic if you're sitting on the patio having this salad. So we have our little toast coming out now, and you can see that they're not completely hard. They're hot because they just came out of the oven, but they're not completely brown. They're still just a light golden sort of toast. And when you break them open, they're still kind of soft on the inside. You want them to be soft on the inside. Again, we're not making a Caesar salad with the really hard, crunchy croutons. So I'm just going to set these for a minute while we do the rest of our vegetables. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up a little pepper. So I want to show you guys the right way to cut a pepper, okay? When we cut a pepper, what we want to do is take the top off and take the bottom off. So sideways on the cutting board, take the bottom off, take the top off. So you have this. Now, the stem usually pops off, that goes in the garbage. Now, when you look through the pepper, you can see all the way through. Wherever there's one of those holes, we just cut through the hole, and then we roll the pepper, keeping your knife parallel to the cutting board so that all the seeds, all the insides come out in one piece. I have this thing about pepper seeds. It has a thing that drives them crazy. For me, it's pepper seeds. And the reason is, this little pepper seed, if that finds its way into your salad, someone's going to bite down on a raw pepper seed and it's going to crunch and it's very pleasant. So when you do your pepper this way, you get this big, beautiful piece of pepper, no seeds anywhere, and it's a big canvas in which you can cut your pepper any way that you want. So I'm just going to, you can do little triangles, you could do, I've punched them out with little circle cutters before to make little pepper circles back in the fine dining days. One little guy got through. Oh, I used to go through my cook's mise en place when they would cut like 20, 30, 40 liters of diced peppers. And if I saw one pepper seed, I would throw the whole pail of it out and make them redice it. Drives me crazy. I don't know why. Other seeds don't drive me as crazy as peppers. So quick dice of our peppers. I've pre-cut some yellow ones, and we mix all these together. Now with the tops and bottoms, don't throw them away. These are still, very edible. So because it's a rustic salad, I'm just going to cut little triangular pieces. We don't have to worry about them being perfect dices, just nice little triangles of peppers. Same with the top. And we're going to mix all this together, and our next element of our salad is ready. So our peppers are ready, our cucumbers are ready. Because we're at the tail of the asparagus season, I got some asparagus. I love Ontario asparagus. It's one of the first like real green vegetables that come out in Ontario in the spring. So I always get excited after eating, beets and celery root, the root vegetables. So when asparagus season is happening, yeah, it goes into everything I cook. So we're going to take a little bit of asparagus. I've already trimmed off the stalks on here, and I'm just going to cut them in small little pieces. Don't worry about all the little leaves of the heads falling apart. It's all going to end up in the salad anyway, so you don't have to worry. And by that I mean, if you look here, like all the little leaves kind of fall off of the as you cut it. Don't sweat it. We're going to scoop all that up, and we're going to add it to our salad. So here we have a decision to make. You can either blanch your asparagus or you can put it in raw. If you like raw asparagus, salad is a perfect opportunity to use raw asparagus. If you prefer it to be, a little softer, some people don't like the flavor of raw asparagus, then just blanch it very, very, very quickly in a bit of salted boiling water. So I blanched some ahead of time. So this is my blanched asparagus in this pot, in this mixing bowl, and this is the raw asparagus. I'm going to use them both. I don't know. Why not? It's a salad. We can play with it. We can have some fun. Now, that's all of our ingredients. Like I said, you can add anything that you want to this salad. If you're going through your fridge and you see, I don't know, anything. You see beets in there. Roast off some beets and throw some beets in there. You see fiddleheads, anything that you have, any vegetable that you have, just grab it, chop it up, and throw it into your salad. So we're going to get to the mix of the dish now. Once we have all this together, we are going to start mixing all of our salad together. So empty mixing bowls. We start with our bread. Our bread is so our bread goes into our mixing bowl. It's cooled down by now. So now the bread is nice and cold. You can hear it's a little bit hard on the outside, but still, soft in the middle. Now we take our tomatoes, which have been sitting in the mixing bowl, and you can see a lot more liquid. And I'm trying to see if you can see that. You see there's a lot of liquid coming out of the bottom. So what we want to do is take that liquid and just pour the liquid into the bread. All right, you want this tomato juice to be absorbed by the bread. That's where a lot of the flavor in this dish comes from. And we give it a quick toss. Now we're going to take our red onions, which again have been, cooking, for lack of a better term, in the vinegar, and we sprinkle a few in here. We're starting off with the really moist ingredients because we want that to moisten all the bread. So a little bit of that goes in, and we give it a toss. Now, we are going to use the vinegar from the onions a little bit later, so don't panic. Big waste of vinegar. Now we take our tomatoes, and we throw a few of our tomatoes into the mixing bowl. I'm going to move that closer so you guys can see as I'm putting it in. So get a nice of all the different colors, all the different shapes, and we give it a toss. Now, I'm tossing after every application, and that's not for show. You want to keep agitating it, keep on mixing it as it goes in so that all the flavors can kind of come together and be released into the salad. Oops. And when one falls on the cutting board, you get to eat it. So we have our peppers next. And again, a handful, mix up the colors, mix up the shapes, and we toss. Now, the bread is already starting to get soft, which is wonderful. That's what we want. It's not making that clanking sound anymore. And now we put in our cucumbers. Again, a nice little mix. It takes a few times of making this before you start to really get the volumes of we're putting in here. So a little bit of asparagus. This is the cooked one. And I'm going to put a little bit of the raw ones in there because I like the crunch of the raw ones. You can also roast your peppers. That's another thing. If raw peppers aren't your, don't be afraid. Roast your peppers a little softer. It's totally cool. Now, we're going to add a little bit of the acid from the pickled red onions. Just a little bit of vinegar, not too much because I like to rely on the acid of the tomatoes to balance out this dish. And then just another little drizzle of our good Tuscan olive oil. And then we let it sit for a couple minutes. So while we're letting it sit, any questions, Astrid?
Yes, thank you, Chef. So the recipe actually said you should use roasted peppers. So can you just confirm you can use either roasted or raw?
Absolutely, and that's something that that I said earlier. It's about what you have. If you want to roast peppers, if you like the flavor of roasted peppers, by all means, go crazy. Throw roasted peppers in here. It's not going to ruin the dish. I like today, because it's like a nice warm day and I'm probably going to eat out on the patio, I wanted it to be a little bit brighter. So the raw vegetables tend to be a little bit brighter in flavor. But absolutely use roasted vegetables. No, I probably roasted on a gloomy night when I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to roast some peppers. But yeah, use whatever you want.
And there's a question for the asparagus. Do you blanch it when it's whole or after cutting?
After. Yeah, so after I cut them, a little pot of water, salt in the water, and they're in and out. And honestly, when they're cut this small, they're in the bowl for, I'd say, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. That's it. Then you take them out, and you don't have to shock them. That means you don't have to put them in ice water. Just if they're only in for 15 seconds, as they cool, they will carry over cook. They will finish cooking. Just from the heat that's trapped inside of the asparagus. And
can you add olives to the salad?
Yeah, you can add olives, you can add capers, you can add, this is sort of the basic recipe. I often will add a protein to this. So I will often grill a piece of steak or a piece of chicken and kind of even a can of tuna, like some good, and add that to this salad. And to make it a little bit more complete meal. So yeah, but as far as flavoring goes, yeah, you can do whatever you want. Like I said, I'm trying to keep it very, I want it to be very, the vegetables to sort of be the showpiece of this salad.
Okay, and coming back to our cheese, could you just explain briefly what, if there's any differences between Pecorino Toscano and other types of Pecorino?
And sorry?
And other types of pecorino.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different types of pecorino. They're all made with sheep's milk. Pecorino Toscano is made with full fat milk. So the milk is, it's not skimmed; it's full fat, and then it's pasteurized before it's actually broken up. You saw in the video they have the big vats where they put the rennet in, so it actually congeals. Some other pecorinos aren't pasteurized. Pecorino Toscano is unique because, as I mentioned earlier, the forage, what the sheep actually during their life, is very unique to Tuscany. So it has a different flavor. It's also the density. Young Pecorino Toscano, this one that we have here, is very. It has a beautiful mouthfeel. Mouthfeel refers to the way that it reacts in your mouth. When you put it in your mouth, you have to chew it a bit, but you're not like really working on it. It doesn't crumble into little pieces and get stuck in all your molars. It's a nice, soft, kind of chewy cheese. It's a wonderful, wonderful cheese. Other pecorinos, they tend to be, even more salty than the Toscano, and tend to be a lot harder and a completely different. A lot of other pecorinos tend to be more gamey in flavor. More gamey meaning, more rich, more gamey. I don't know how to explain gamey. It's just, yeah, much more strong.
And how long is the Pecorino Toscano aged?
The fresh stuff is 20 days. So the piece that we have here, it's 20 days from the day that it's salted, whereas the vecchio, the aged Pecorino Toscano, is 4.
Okay, thank you, Chef.
Okay, so now we're doing the finishing here. So we have a little bit of basil. So these are some basil leaves that I just layered on top of each other. And then I'm going to roll into a little cone. Kind of looks like a caterpillar, we'll say. And then we're going to cut it into very, very, very fine pieces. So again, as fine as you can possibly cut it. Now, a lot of recipes will call for torn basil, and on this recipe, I actually put the torn basil in here, and I am going to tear part of it, but I also like to fine julienne of some of the basil so that the flavor can penetrate and get evenly dispersed throughout the salad. If you just do big pieces of torn basil, which is what I'm going to do with these pieces, then as you're eating the salad, you get one mouthful of like full-on basil, and then you'll get 3 mouthfuls where you won't get any basil. So our basil goes in. We're also going to add a little bit of roughly chopped parsley. So I just have some Italian flat leaf parsley. I went ahead and chopped because I knew this was going to happen. I was going to talk too much, and we were going to run out of time. So a little bit of chopped parsley. And now, just to keep it kind of bright, that you know, summery sitting on the patio kind of note, I'm going to take a lemon, and I'm just going to put a little bit of lemon zest in here. Not a ton, because we don't want it to taste like lemon. We just want the brightness of the lemon to kind of be in the background. So once this is all done, we check our seasoning, we check our salt and our pepper, and we check to see if we need else, if we need a little bit more oil, if we need a little bit more acid. But we just take a piece. I usually start with a piece of bread. Try that. Take any random piece of vegetable and try that. Oh yeah, that's awesome. So a nice bit of acid in there. Oh yeah, but sweetness from all the vegetables. Wow, that's good. It's nice when you actually cook something that you like. So now we come to the plating section. So we're going to plate. I've just got a nice big bowl here. And we're going to put our salad into the middle of the bowl and plate this and not just put it out. And I mean, if you're doing family style and you're putting out a big giant, you know, pot of it, that's cool too. But if you want to make it kind of pretty and plate it, we're just going to carefully lay the vegetables, the bread, the whole salad together. And you see how I'm doing it in small amounts. Don't just take, you know, a giant scoop of it, slop it onto the plate, because it's just going to fall all over the plate and look really gross. So we're going to take that, and just for garnish, we're going to take another bit of the pecorino. This is for garnish and a big part of the flavor profile of the dish as well, because again, we're showcasing the pecorino. So we take a little piece of pecorino, and just with a vegetable peeler, we're just going to shave a couple pieces of pecorino. So I'm going to do some skinny ones, and I'm going to do some fat ones, a little bit of everything. Let it fall onto the cutting board, and then we're going to place these on top of our salad. Again, we want the flavor of the pecorino to be in here, but we also want to see it so that you're like, what's that? That's cool. That's a nice little piece of cheese. That looks great. We talk to ourselves when we plate chefs. They're kind of crazy like that. Okay, so any questions while I'm playing with this, Astrid?
Yes, we have a question. Is there a difference in taste between Italian parsley and curly parsley?
Is there, sorry, a difference in taste? Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Italian flat leaf parsley is very, very different in flavor than the curly parsley. They're side by side. It's kind of hard to notice, but once you get used to the flavor of Italian parsley, it's kind of hard to go back and eat regular. I find anyway, it's kind of hard to go back and eat regular parsley. We have everything here. Turn that guy around. And all we want to do here is finish this off with just a tiny, tiny, tiny drizzle of olive. Now, I intentionally left a little bit, left it a little on the olive oil because I like to have a little drizzle of olive oil around the edge of the plate. So you don't want it to be too oily, but you want that nice, fresh, olivey, is that a word? Olivey flavor on your salad. So just a little drizzle around the outside, just so that you can see the olive oil. There we go. And that is your panzanella salad. Now, like I said, to do this start to finish, it's not that hard. In half an hour, you can make this salad. All you have to do, rummage through your fridge, find everything ahead of time, and start cutting it, and then toast some bread. That's it. The onions, you don't even have to do that pickling trick that I just showed you. You don't have to do that. Use raw onions if you want. You can use green onions, like scallions, the tops of the green onions if you like. I just like the flavor of the pickled red onions. But if you don't have time for it, don't do it. Don't do it. Throw in raw red onions, skip the onions, do whatever you want. The important part here is that you're heavy on the fresh vegetables, heavy on the tomatoes, and then you have a really good quality cheese. So the Pecorino Toscano, it's a perfect match for this dish because it's not too strong that it overpowers the dish, but it adds that nice fattiness, that little bit of saltiness, that little bit of gaminess that kind of completes the dish, rounds it out, makes it really balanced and beautiful. So, any questions, Astrid?
Yes, to finish the salad off, can you add more vinegar, or can you also use balsamic vinegar?
So balsamic, yes, you can. The reason I don't use balsamic in my panzanellas is that I find the black balsamic really makes the dish look muddy. Like it kind of takes away from those bright colors of the vegetables. The flavor is okay. The flavor is great, but it just looks kind of muddy. You absolutely can. There's no problem with it. You just need some sort of acid in there. Sometimes I will even forego the red onion and just use lemon juice. As long as there's a bit of acid in there, you're okay. A lot of it depends on if the tomatoes are underripe, then they'll be more acidic, so you'll use a lot less acid. If the tomatoes are nice and ripe, they're very salty, so you need to add a little bit more acid. You just taste it. Just taste it, taste it, taste it. That's the only way to know if you're acid or balanced in any dish. Taste it, taste it. You don't know if it's salty unless you taste it.
Great, thank you. We also have a question for the olive oil. Can you just confirm if it's extra virgin olive oil?
Absolutely, yeah. So extra virgin olive oil. When you're buying olive oil, I always, I always tell people, look for the IGP or the DOP label on the bottom. That guarantees the quality of the olive oil. A lot of people are sort of timid. They're a little nervous to spend $30, $40 on a bottle of olive oil. Just bite the bullet. Honestly, if it's one piece of advice I can give anyone, if they're cooking Italian food, buy really good olive oil. If you spend $40 on a bottle of wine, which we've all done, you drink it for one day. It makes that dinner wonderful because you're drinking a wonderful quality wine. You spend $40 on a good bottle of olive oil, it will make countless dinners better. The return on your investment is much bigger, much better. A good bottle of olive oil. So buy a nice olive oil. They change year to year. It's a harvest like anything else. Sometimes the olives are great, sometimes the olives aren't. But generally, you find a brand that you like, that you stick with. Once you find that brand, just stick with it. Buy it by the case. Keep it in your pantry. As long as it's dark and cool, it'll last for a good long time. But yes, absolutely extra virgin olive oil.
We got a more specific question. We talked about this maybe last week or the week before. Could you just repeat the name of the supply store on Bathurst that you go to?
Oh, Nella. Oh, sorry, Nicolau.
Nicolau. Okay.
Oh, Nicolau restaurant. It's spelled Nickalau, some weird spelling. It's on the south side of Queen, just east of Bath. It's just a small storefront, a very plain looking white and blue sign. But yeah, if you go in there, anything you could need for cooking, they have it.
And then we have another question for the acidity in the salad. Was the acidity already present in the onion marinated in red wine vinegar?
Yes, and that's why we put the onions in first, and then we added just a little bit of the vinegar, because the onions you can't control the amount of acidity in the onions, but you can control the amount of acid that you put on afterwards. So yeah, that's where most of the acidity comes from, is from those onions.
And one more question for the cheese. How is Pecorino Toscano different than, let's say, for example, Parmigiano?
Flavor profile. Parmigiano is, sweeter. They've both been, have been made in Italy for thousands of years. There are lots of documented cases of, writers and poets 2,000 years, 1,800 years ago, who say that Pecorino Toscano is as good as the best cheese that's made in Italy. The difference is flavor and density. So Parmigiano Reggiano, we all love it. It's dry, it's crumbly, it's great for grating. If you're going to eat a snack on, one of those style cheeses, usually go with the Grana Padano. Pecorino Toscano has that same sort of action, in that the young Pecorino Toscano is wonderful for eating raw, just like in this salad, but it has more flavor. And it's, like I said, it's grassier, it's herbier, it's a little richer, it's a little stronger than Parmigiano Reggiano. Parmigiano Reggiano is known for its nuttiness, for its sweetness, but it's never as fresh and soft as a young Pecorino Toscano. Whereas the aged Pecorino Toscano, use it often as I would Parmigiano Reggiano. Well, I'll grate it on top of a pasta instead of a Parmigiano Reggiano. You have that ability with Pecorino Toscano to get that density and that flavor profile. It's much stronger. The 4-month-old cheese is much stronger. They don't show you in the videos, but these are actually, during the aging process, they get covered with mold. And that mold is what gives the cheese the flavor. 20 days, you get a tiny little bit of white mold. The one that's aged for 4 months, it looks like a carpet. It's often removed, like during the process. You can't leave it on for too long, but it gets washed off, and then it grows back, and it gets washed off back, and that develops much more flavor. You don't get that with Parmigiano Reggianos. They don't let mold grow on the Parmigiano Reggianos. So much richer, more flavor.
And just one more quick question. Do you serve the salad as a main course? And when do you add the protein, if you add any protein to the salad? Yeah,
so like when I'm here cooking for my family or I have people coming over, I would do this. I would plate it, take it to this level, and then I would have a piece of meat or my chicken setting aside. I would carve it, and I would just place it on after the salad is plated. And again, you can do anything. I mean, you could do seafood if you want. You can do meat. You can do chicken. You could do any protein that you want. And again, even if you want to build more protein into here, you could throw avocados in here. You can put nuts in here. The idea of panzanella is that it's a bread salad with tomatoes. What you do from there, yeah, there would be chefs who would call you crazy and say, that's not a panzanella salad. But you know what? We're a long way away. We're in Canada. We should take some liberties and use the products that we have, because the basis of all Italian is using fresh ingredients when they're in season. So if we're doing that here, we're not breaking the golden rule of Italian cuisine. So they should cut us some slack and let us put some avocado in here.
That's it from my side.
Cool. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you learned something. I hope you had some fun. I hope you're all going to make this panzanella salad. If you have any questions, if you didn't get your questions in during the class, just go to Instagram, follow me. It's at Roberto Fracchioni. Shoot me a direct message on Instagram. I'll get back to you and answer any questions that you have. I hope that you had some fun and you want to eat a panzanella as much as I do. So, see you all next week. Thank you again.
And thank you so much, Roberto, for this incredible salad. It looks so tasty. Thank you so much for all the insights that you gave us. And thank you all for attending and being with us this evening. We hope Pecorino Toscano will be in the list of your next grocery run for a special accent on the summer table. From all of us at the ICCO, and especially from the Consorzio del Pecorino Toscano, thank you for having followed this evening's Tutti a Tavola class. Chef Roberto, Astrid, Isabella, and myself look forward to welcoming you next week for our June Tutti a Tavola summer series. Arrivederci e grazie al Consorzio del Pecorino Toscano. Buonasera a tutti.